Could I just get some of our team to come up? For those of you who know the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, you will know the key principle: never criticise, condemn or complain. Really good advice for leadership and marriage, but terrible advice for people in a democracy. You see, back to the Magna Carta, with the foundations of an independent judiciary, separation of powers, fair trial, it was based on the foundation of being able to hold those in power to account. It was based on the ability to actually criticise, condemn or complain those people in power who did not act according to the law, and to make sure they were accountable according to the law. Today, in a democracy under the rule of law, we have the same foundations. We need all people to have a say, and we need all people to be able to hold those in power to account. Therefore, now, under our democracy, we at times do need to criticise, condemn or complain to make sure our leaders are held to account. Now, I'm in a room full of lawyers and some journalists, and this is not surprising to you, and it's definitely not news that you should be able to criticise, condemn or complain. But for many Australian students, most who often come from migrant families, this is actually news to them. For democracy under the rule of law to survive, we require our Australian students to have an understanding and the tools to hold those in power to account. They need to be able to value the institutions and the processes that give them the ability to, at times, criticise and condemn those in power. We need to make sure our Australian students understand these key principles. And that's what we at the Rule of Law do. When my dad, Robin Speed, Malcolm and David Lowy set up the Rule of Law Institute and later the Rule of Law Education Centre, they set us up as the champions of the rule of law and democracy in Australian schools. We fill this gap that government-funded education bodies cannot do lest they bite the hand that feeds them. So we do this by doing three things. We create education resources based on the rule of law, we take students into schools, and we also encourage respectful debate when the rule of law is breached. So I thought the best way to explain what we do is to let you meet some of our team. So first of all, I'm going to bring up Justine, our Education Manager.
Thanks, Sal. Welcome, everybody. I'm a teacher with 22 years' experience in the classroom, and one of the key aspects of my role is to ensure that we produce resources and experiences for students that we not only have as syllabus aligned, but also that help to create critical thinkers who want to question those in power and the decisions that they make, whether executive, judiciary or government. What I can tell you is what we do it really, really well. We have over 3,000 teachers on our members and mailing list. We have their emails and they look forward to hearing from us. We're invited to appear at annual teacher education conferences every year from peak professional teacher bodies across Australia, across all Australian education jurisdictions. And as with any professional association seeking to expand the knowledge and the skills of their members, that doesn't happen by accident, that happens by reputation. So they trust our programs, they trust our resources. I know when I was a classroom teacher, I used Rule of Law Education Centre resources quite a lot, and I've been building on that with the team as I've been in the employment of the organisation. We've got a number of judges that actively volunteer to speak to students at the Law Day Out program, and often they will opt to reappear throughout the year. We have some judges who will do 4 or 5 sessions every single term. It happens 3 days a week of the school year, every week of the school year. And The judges, I can tell you, deeply value that opportunity to speak with students. Every single one of those judges speaks to every single one of those groups about the value and importance of protecting the rule of law into the future and what their role is and their responsibility is into the future as members of a citizenry. So that's a really important aspect of trying to educate our young people in the absence of civics education, specific civics education that is happening at the moment in Australia. Given that I'm a teacher and I was a teacher for such a long time, I have quite a large teacher network, and I can tell you that teachers don't hesitate to tell me at any point in time what they actually think of our resources and our programs. They don't have a filter when it comes to me, so I am left with no doubt as to the value of our programs and our resources, and I'm left to no doubt as to the quality of what we produce. I don't very often hear any negative feedback, and anything that's negative is usually forwarded by a positive first, and then sort of, I would have changed the way it looked or something like that. So we get really good feedback on a regular basis. We're known for producing really high quality education resources that cater to everyone across the country, so all education jurisdictions. We don't have just one market in New South Wales. We have teachers from across all of Australia. We have homeschool networks that use our resources as well, so they are very widely used. We have a very wide reach throughout the education field. What teachers need and what teachers want is to be able to teach using balance. They can't introduce something into their classroom if it does not have a balance. And often they don't get that from textbooks, and they don't get it from other organisations. That's what they're getting from us, and we are told that regularly, that that's what's missing. They're missing, so being able to teach from multiple perspectives and help students to understand how to become critical thinkers. You need balanced perspectives to be able to create that. What we are doing meets that need, and I'd love to be able to do that further into the future. I'm going to introduce you to Tom now, who's one of our education officers, who runs the Law Day Out program with me. Thanks.
I'm Tom. I'm an education student, and I work alongside Justine running our Law Day Out program. Each year, we take around 4,000 Year 11, Year 12 students through the Downing Centre courts. Escorting a group of students into the courts is never an easy task. For many of the students, it's their first time setting foot in a court, and for those who it isn't their first time, it can be scary and overwhelming. Through our programs, students and teachers have the experience of meeting a judge or a magistrate who talks to them about the importance of the rule of law. During these interactions, they hear from these legal professionals with many years of experience about their experiences, why the rule of law is important, why it's still relevant in today's society. They ask questions, they get great answers, and they even get to stand in the dock. Witnessing the human side of the justice system allows students to grasp how decisions are made, the important role of an independent judiciary, and how human these people really are. After hearing from the judicial officer, we take the students into live court cases in the public gallery. This can also be quite confronting and is a very real experience for these students, especially when they may see an accused person being taken away. This experience, however, transforms these students' experience of justice, and it transforms their understanding of justice from theory into reality. I'm going to pass over to Jazz, who'll talk to you more about our education resources.
Hi everyone, my name is Jasmine. I'm a fourth year law student, and I spend a lot of my time helping run the Law Days Out and creating our resources that our school students use. Our case notes that we create are especially popular, and they're freely available online on our website. We make them unique by breaking down complex concepts and discussing current issues from a rule of law perspective. Recently, we wrote a case note on the NZYQ High Court case, which turned out to be a fantastic example for students. This case has been in the media a lot recently and is actually a really cool illustration of how the separation of powers works in our country. What I think is really interesting is that in Australia, even a stateless sex offender was able to have the protection of the law. They were able to bring their case before the court. And ultimately, the High Court did rule in their favour, and despite the government's dislike of the decision, they nonetheless abided by it. We might not always like the laws that the government creates or the decisions that the High Court makes, but it's so amazing to live in a country where there's such a strong culture of lawfulness, and where most people, including the government, generally are willing to follow the law. Thank you.
Hi everyone, if I haven't had the chance to meet you yet, my name's Kate, and if I have had the chance to meet you, my name is still Kate. And I am a third-year law student, and I'm involved in facilitating the Law Days Out and creating some of the education content as well. Upon reflecting upon my time as a legal studies student in high school, I came to realise that the material that we learnt about and were presented often formed and presented a one-sided view. For example, when studying the human rights and the need for a Human Rights Act, we largely focused on the breaches that Australia had in human rights, and it painted Australia in a really negative light regarding our human rights record. However, since joining Rule of Law, I've had the opportunity to create balanced resources looking at both sides of the argument. For example, just a couple of weeks ago, myself and Lorraine Finlay, the Australian Human Rights Commissioner, got to have a look at some human rights issues and look at them at lots of different angles and present a balanced argument on what these issues are, and made it really relevant to the school students as well. These materials help students not only look at breaches, but also how our human rights, about the foundation of those human rights and how they're protected in our legal system. And this morning I've had the opportunity to interview Mr. Walter Sofronoff, KC, and we were just about to come out with some videos about what is the rule of law, separation of powers, and checks and balances in our legal system. So I'm just going to hand back to Sally.